Hey YouTube, this is PrimetimePokemon. Today I'm going to review a Heart Gold Soul Silver Triumphant theme deck. This one has Nidoking on the front, and it's called Royal Guard. It's a fighting and psychic type theme deck. And I was already looking at the cards on the inside, which is a pretty good deck. I'll read the strategy first. It says, let Nidoking lead from the front and unleash its devastating venomous horn attack to punish and poison your foe's Pokemon. Then bring the opposition to its knees as Machamp steps up to deliver your crowning achievement with its majestic 100 Furious Punches attack. And, if Revolution is in the air, the Twin Supporter card will help crush any challenge to your sovereignty by rewarding you with extra cards. Will your rule be absolute with the Royal Guard theme deck? So as always, I'm going to review all the cards in the deck. Here's the deck list here. As you can see, there are 10 Fighting Energy cards and 8 Psychic Energy cards. And as you can see in a little bit, Nidoran and Nidorino, they're both Psychic Pokemon, and the Nidoking is a Fighting type, so that's why this is a dual deck. It makes sense to have a dual deck like this. I will be giving away this deck at the end of the video. Watch for something towards the end. I'll tell you how to win this deck. But I'll be giving you the cards, the playing mat, the card list, and then the damage counters, burn marker and poison marker, as well as the coin. There's a coin there. I am keeping the extra booster pack that comes with the deck. I'm going to open it in a video later. I've already opened this deck just so I could separate out the cards, because they're all mixed up and it's easier to go through them when they're all in order. So, it looks like we have 10 Fighting Energy, so we'll just go through it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then we'll have 8 Psychic Energy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now we're going to start with the trainers. There is 2 Life Herb trainers in this deck. It says to flip a coin. If heads, choose one of your Pokemon and remove all special conditions and 6 damage counters from that Pokemon. I know this is only a 50% chance of you being able to use this trainer, but with the Nidoking and a Machamp in this deck, both Stage 2 Pokemon cards with high HP, if you do get a heads when you use this card, it'll keep Machamp or Nidoking in there for 1 to 2 turns longer and be able to knock out probably at least 1 or 2 more Pokemon cards. So there's 2 of those. There are 2 Pokeballs. This is another flip a coin trainer. And it says, if heads, search your deck for Pokemon, show it to your opponent, and put it into your hand. So with this deck, since there are a lot of Stage 2 Pokemon in this deck, you definitely want a Pokeball trainer in there so you can search your deck for Pokemon that you need to evolve. Then there are just, let's see, 2 Energy Exchanger trainers. And if you don't know what trainers actually do, you can use as many trainer cards per turn as you want, compared to the supporter cards I'll be showing you right after these, where a supporter card is a little more powerful than a trainer card, and it can do a little more, and you only can use those once per turn. But an Energy Exchanger basically allows you to take an energy card from your hand, place it on top of your deck, and search for a different energy card that you want. So if you have a fighting type Pokemon out, and you have only Psychic Energy cards in your deck, you might want to place one of those Psychic Energy cards on your top of your deck, search your deck for Fighting type energy, and put it back into your hand. That way you can play that Fighting Energy out on your active Pokemon. So there's 2 Energy Exchangers. There's 2 Professor Elm's training methods, which basically allows you to search your deck for an evolution card and show it to your opponent, put it in your hand. Now this is a supporter card like I was talking about earlier, so you only can play 1 supporter card per turn, but since there are a lot of Stage 1 and Stage 2 Pokemon cards in this deck, it is necessary to have a lot of trainers and supporters that allow you to find Pokemon cards in your deck. And then we do have 2 interviewers questions. This supporter lets you look at the top 8 cards of your deck and then keep all the energy cards you see in those top 8. And the good thing about this card is that you don't have to discard the cards that aren't energy cards when you look at your top 8 cards of your deck. You just put them right back in your deck and shuffle it when you're done. And then there is, let's see, only 1 Professor Oak's new theory, and basically it just lets you replenish your hand. It just says shuffle your hand into your deck and draw 6 cards. So a good time to use this would be if you have nothing in your hand at all, no energies or anything. I would use it then, or if your hand is really low, if you only have 2 or 3 cards, I'd use it then as well. And then you can basically get 4 or 5 free cards in your hand. And the back of the box was talking about the twin supporter. It was talking about it'll help you crush any challenge to your sovereignty by rewarding you with extra cards. So twin supporter, it says you may use this card only if you have more prize cards left than your opponent. So only if you're basically losing the game. It says search your deck for any 2 cards and put them into your hand. So 2 cards that come right to the top of my head when I read this card was Machamp and Nidoking. So I definitely search for evolution cards when I use this card. There's 2 of those, and that's the last of the supporter and trainer cards. Now we're going to look at the psychic Pokemon cards first. We have a 2-1 line of Shuppet and Banette. Shuppet's a basic psychic type Pokemon card, 60 HP, so it's pretty good. It has 2 moves. The first is called Disable, and it says to flip a coin. If heads, choose one of the defending Pokemon's attacks. That Pokemon can't use that attack during your opponent's next turn. And now that I see that Shuppet does have a 1 colorless energy card retreat cost, what I would do if I was facing an extremely strong Pokemon that maybe only had 1 really strong move, you could move this card in as your active Pokemon, use Disable, and that Pokemon won't be able to use Disable in the next turn, and then retreat this Pokemon and put it in a lot powerful of a Pokemon and attack with that Pokemon. So basically it's a way to disallow the defending Pokemon to use its strong move. So basically it's like a paralysis type of move. But I would only use that if Shuppet is already your active Pokemon, because you wouldn't want to take the time to move it in and then move it right back out. You'd want to already have it in and then be able to retreat it right away. And then second move is called Haunt, and says put 1 damage counter on the defending Pokemon. So that's a standard type move, 1 psychic energy, 10 damage. Like I was saying, there's 2 Shuppets in the deck and then 1 Banette. Stage 1 psychic type Pokemon card, 80 HP. 2 moves. The first is called Lost Crush. It says flip a coin. If heads, choose 1 energy card attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Put it into the Lost Zone. So I've talked about the Lost Zone in my videos on how to play the Pokemon trading card game. And the Lost Zone is just an area that cards go into and you can't get them back. There aren't any cards that get cards out of the Lost Zone. So it could be important to use this card, especially if your opponent is running low on energy cards, and that 1 energy card will mean a whole lot to them. If you make it out of play and they can never get to it again, that might be crucial to winning the game. And the second move is called Breakdown. It takes 3 energy cards, and 2 of them are colorless, so you can put fighting energy cards on here. And it says to count the number of cards in your opponent's hand. Put that many damage counters on the defending Pokemon. So at most it can do 60 damage, which is right around average. So for a stage 1 Pokemon card, pretty good card, I guess. You can do 60 damage. A lot of times when the stage 1 Pokemon cards they have an attack with 3 energy costs, it can only do 50 damage. So this has a chance to do 60 damage, I guess, later in the game. If they use a lot of cards that allow you to draw cards in your hand, they could have 7 or 8 cards in there. It could do more than 60 damage. So it's not a bad card. Next we have a Spoink. We have a 2-1 line of Spoink and Grubpig. Spoink, 50 HP, basic Pokemon, psychic type, and just has a 1 move called Sleep Pearl. And it says defending Pokemon is now asleep, and then switch Spoink with one of your bench Pokemon. So this could be a good or bad card. I mean, if your Pokemon of yours is knocked out and you only have Spoink on your bench, and then you put it out there, and then the next turn you do draw a basic Pokemon card you really want to use, you could put that card on your bench, use Sleep Pearl, make the defending Pokemon asleep, and then switch it out for that basic Pokemon you just drew. So it could be a good card there. And then Grumpig is his evolution, and it's a stage 1 Pokemon card, 90 HP, has 2 moves. The first is called Psychic Lock, and it takes 2 energy cards, does 20 damage, and it says your opponent can't use any Poke Powers during their next turn. And Poke Powers actually apply to all their bench Pokemon and their active Pokemon, because if a Pokemon is on their bench, they can still use their Poke Power. So that could be effective, especially if the defending player is using a Poke Power as their main strategy in their deck. And its second move is called Bench Manipulation. This requires 3 energy cards, so it's going to be important to use Energy Exchanger and Interviewer's Questions. to get the right type of energy and a lot of energy in your hand, so you can make sure and attach energy cards to Grumpig every turn. But bench manipulation does 40 times damage. For each head it gets, wait, this attack does 40 damage times the number of tails. That's new, because usually it's heads, but it's tails for each bench Pokemon their opponent has on their bench. So you can have 5 bench Pokemon, so that can do 200 damage if you get heads if they have a full bench. So that could be a really good move right there. Next is Scorpy. We have, let's see what we have in here. We have just two Scorpy. Basic Pokemon, 60 HP, Psychic type. Just has a 1 move, 2 energy cards, so it might take a little longer to use. Called Paralyzing Clamp is a move, 30 damage, and it says flip a coin. If tails, this attack does nothing. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. So if you do get a heads, the defending Pokemon basically can attack the next turn, but if you do get a tails, it's nothing. And since we don't have any evolutions of Scorpy in the deck, it really doesn't make any sense for me to have this card in the deck, because you have a 50-50 chance of not even being able to do anything at all. And since it does require 2 energy cards and it's a basic Pokemon, you want to be able to do some damage with it at least. So I'd probably stay away from this card. I'd probably try to change this card out with something else. That's where I'd recommend buying booster packs and then one by one changing these themed decks just a little bit to make them better. The next Pokemon is Ghastly. And here's where I might maybe put a Gengar in, because you have a 2-2 line of Ghastly and Haunter. And Ghastly, basic Psychic type Pokemon, 50 HP, just the 1 move called Sneaky Placement, and it just says put 1 damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon. We had a really, and Shuppet, this is a real similar move. Shuppet and Ghastly both have, for 1 Psychic Energy card, you can put 1 damage counter on one of the Pokemon. This can do on any of your opponent's Pokemon, and Shuppet can only do it on the active Pokemon. I just noticed that. So they're not too similar, but sometimes with a Psychic type Pokemon you can do spread damage, but I haven't really seen it so far in this deck. So you have 2 Ghastly, and then 2 Haunters, stage 1, low HP, only 70, which is surprising. And it does have 2 moves, and it has the same move as Ghastly called Sneaky Placement, but this time for 1 Psychic Energy card, it allows you to put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So it isn't too bad. I wish it would have been put 2 damage counters on all of your defending Pokemon. That way, well, I could see it being put 2 damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon that have damage counters on them already. But 2 damage counters, I mean only 1 energy card, I guess it's a reasonable move. And its second move is called Sleep Poison, 2 colorless energy cards, and it just says the defending Pokemon is now asleep and poisoned. So asleep, basically they have to flip a coin every turn to see if they can attack, if they wake up or not, and then poison adds damage to the defending Pokemon every turn. So that basically, you can do sleep, you can do this move and make them poison and have damage each turn, and then I just go back to Sneaky Placement, and that way you can do about 30 damage every turn. So there's 2 Haunters, and then now we're going to get into the Nidoran and then Nidoking. Like I was saying earlier, Nidoran and Nidorino are both Psychic type, and then Nidoking is Fighting type. So Nidoran, there's, I believe, it's a 4-2-2 line. So Nidoran, 50 HP Psychic, 2 moves, basically the 1 for 10 and 2 for 20. And if you have another Nidoran, this wouldn't work out with this deck, because it says if Nidoran female is on your bench, the defending Pokemon is now poisoned. You could actually use that if you wanted to. You could take out, like I was talking about, I don't think, what was I talking about? The Scorpy was that good. You could put a Nidoran female in this deck and be able to poison it. But I probably wouldn't, because if I put a Nidoran female in this deck, I'd probably want to go to Nidoqueen too. So I'd probably just leave it the way it was. And then Horntack, basically, like I was saying, the 1 for 10, 2 for 20, very standard basic Pokemon card. So 4 of those, and then we have 2 Nidorinos, 80 HP, so it's a little lower HP. 2 moves, the standard 2 for 30 on a stage 1, and then 3 for 80, which is really high for a stage 1. But it's the same thing that I was talking about earlier with the Scorpy. It's where you have to flip a coin. If it's tails, the move does nothing. I really don't like using these moves because you could, spend the time to attach 3 energy cards to Nidorino and do lunge, and then you might not be able to do anything at all. But I'm sure Nidoking requires a lot of energy, so it could be beneficial to attach 3 energy cards. And if you don't have Nidoking out yet, you could try lunge that would do 80 damage. But I definitely use a Pokeball and Professor Elm's training method to search for, as well as twins to search for Nidoking if it wasn't out there yet. There's 2 Nidoking in this deck, and they're fighting type, like I was saying. The one's a holographic pattern, and one's a regular rare. 140 HP, fighting type, stage 2 Pokemon card, so pretty good HP. It'll be able to last a while. And it does have a Pokebody, and it has a Venomous Horn attack. I'll read the Pokebody second. Venomous Horn, 4 energy cards, and as you can see from the Nidorino, lunge takes 3 energy cards, 2 colorless, 1 psychic. So if you put 1 psychic and 2 fighting, then you only have to attach 1 more energy card to Nidoking to do 80 damage, plus the defending Pokemon is now poisoned. So about 4 energy cards is the average for 80 damage, but with Nidoking being able to poison the defending Pokemon, that makes it even better. So there are quite a few cards in this deck that can poison the defending Pokemon. I know, let's see, Sleep Poison of Haunter can poison defending Pokemon, and then if you do have a Nidoran female with Nidoran when you have it out there, it can poison it as well. So that's the Venomous Horn. I definitely recommend using this, so I definitely try to get Nidoking out there as fast as possible. And its Pokebody says that Nidoking gets 20 HP for each Nidoqueen you have in play. And this really isn't applicable to this deck either, because there's no Nidoqueens. So if you wanted to, you could switch out like a Spoink and Banette and Grumpig and Shuppet, that type of thing. You could switch out some of the psychic Pokemon and switch to a Nidoran, Nidorina, and Nidoqueen, and then you'd be able to use Pheromone Poison for the Nidoran and be able to use Pheromone Stamina on the Nidoking. That, just as a basic Pokemon player, you probably want to stick with this deck, but as time goes by and you get more experience, I definitely think about putting a Nidoqueen in this deck, at least 1 or 2 of them. I'd probably have the same. I'd probably do 4-2-2 as a line. 4 Nidoran females, 4 Nidorinas, and then 4 Nidoqueens. So that's Nidoking. And then we have a 2-2 line of Cubone and Marowak. Cubone is a basic fighting type Pokemon, low HP though, only 40. Does have a Pokebody, so you might want to consider putting it on the bench. And then it has Bone Rush, which does 20 damage. You have to flip a coin until you get tails. So that's not too great a move, because more than likely this is only going to do 20 damage for 2 energy cards, which is average, I guess, for basic Pokemon. But with only 40 HP, it's not going to last long unless you do evolve it into Marowak quite quickly. And with Pokeball, Professor Elm's training method, and twins, you'd definitely have a chance to evolve it into Marowak. And then its Pokebody is called Lonely Bone. It says any damage done to Cubone by your opponent's attacks is reduced by 20 for each Marowak in your discard pile. So since there's only 2 Marowaks in this deck, you basically have to use a Marowak before this to be able to use this Pokebody at all. Now we're going to move on to Marowak. There's 2 of these. It does have 90 HP, which is quite good for a stage 1 Pokemon card. It has 2 moves. The first is called Boomerang. 2 energy cards it takes and does 60 damage times the number of heads, which is quite good because more than likely you're going to get 1 heads out of 2 flips. So it could have the possibility of doing 120 damage in 1 move, which is good for a stage 1 Pokemon card. Its second move is called Bone Impact. And it says if there's any stadium card in play, this attack does 20 damage plus 80 more damage, and then discard that stadium card. And since this deck doesn't have any stadium cards in it, you'd have to rely on your opponent having a stadium card in play, and that actually might be a good move to use, a Bone Impact, because the defending player is probably depending on that stadium card for the strategy of their deck, and using Bone Impact and doing 80 damage plus discarding that stadium card could affect your opponent's play quite heavily and be quite an advantage to you. And then next is one of my favorite Pokemon cards, at least because it's always strong, is a line of Machamp, Machoke, Machamp. There's a 2-2-1 line of Machamp, Machoke, Machamp. So Machamp, basic fighting type Pokemon card, 60 HP, 2 moves, Steady Punch, 1 fighting energy card, and does 10 damage plus 10 more damage if you get a heads when you flip a coin, and surprisingly 3 energy cards and does 50 damage. So you're probably not going to be able to do, you're probably never going to have enough energy to use Mach Cross on here, but it is quite a good move for a basic Pokemon card. I'd probably want to evolve it into Machoke or Machamp before I would get 3 energy cards on this card. So the next evolution is Machoke, stage 1, fighting type Pokemon card, HP of 90. It's 2 moves. The second move is called Strength. That's a standard 3 energy cards, 60 damage. And then its first move is called Knuckle Down. Does 30 damage for 1 fighting energy card. It says this attack's damage isn't affected by Poke Powers, Poke Bodies, or any other effects on defending Pokemon. So that is quite good, I guess. I would rely on this move more, and I'd hope to have 3 energy cards attached to Machoke already, so I could evolve into Machamp and then just do 100 Furious Punches right away. So, like I said, 1 Machamp card in the deck. We'll take a look at it. Stage 2 Pokemon card, 130 HP, fighting type. Vital Throw is the first move. It does 40 damage plus 20 more damage. If you do that 20 more damage, Machamp does 20 damage to itself. And since we do have Life Herb trainers in this deck, I'd consider using the 20 more damage for Vital Throw and doing 20 damage to Machamp. Since Machamp does have 130 HP, it can sustain that 20 damage better than other Pokemon. And if you flip a heads when you do use Life Herb, it can remove 6 damage counters from it. But I wouldn't use Vital Throw for the 60 damage unless I'm going to knock out the defending Pokemon, or I can knock out that Pokemon in 2 moves that does 60 damage. And then Machamp's second move, which it talks about on the back of the theme deck box, is called 100 Furious Punches. It takes 3 colorless energy cards, it does 60 damage plus 10 more damage for each fighting energy card attached to Machamp. So if you have 3 fighting energy cards attached to Machamp, that would actually do 90 damage instead of 60. And with a deck that has about an even number of fighting and psychic energy cards, I definitely try and attach all fighting energy cards to Machamp so it could do 90 damage for 3 energy cards, and then it would do 100 damage for 4. So I definitely use this card as my major attacker in the deck, as well as Nidoking. Both of them do really good moves. Nidoking poisons the defending Pokemon, and Machamp would probably knock out the defending Pokemon. If it had 3 or 4 energy cards attached to it, it would do 90 or 100 damage, which would knock out most basic and stage 1 Pokemon cards. So overall, there really isn't too much strategy involved in this one. Some of the psychic cards can do special conditions like poisoning and making the defending Pokemon asleep, but this is more of a powerful attacking type deck, especially with Machamp and Nidoking. So I definitely depend on the Pokeball, Professor Elm's training method, and Twins to get the necessary evolution cards out in your hand as soon as possible, and then I'd use Energy Exchanger and Interviewer's Questions to get the maximum amount of energy cards in your hand, so you can attach energy cards to your Pokemon every turn and not go a turn without attaching an energy card. So I do like this deck quite well. I definitely check it out if you're looking for a big attack type deck. And as always, I'm going to be giving this deck away. Check the annotation on the screen, the box on the screen. I'm going to explain how to win this deck. And I hope you win the deck. And good luck to everyone who's trying. Thanks for watching. Make sure you check out the links in the underbar below. I review cards like this Machamp card on my blog every day. And I also hold weekly polls on there. So thanks a lot. Make sure you check the links in the underbar below. And stay tuned for more videos. Thank you.